Imagine two people walking into the same grocery store. One has $10 left until payday. The other has $10,000 sitting comfortably in their bank account. Now here's the surprising part. If both of them had to solve a problem today, the person with only $10 might actually make the smarter decision. That sounds completely backwards. After all, isn't having money supposed to make you better at making decisions? Not always. In fact, decades of research in psychology and behavioral economics suggest something unexpected. When resources are scarce, the brain changes how it focuses, prioritizes, and solves immediate problems. That doesn't mean poverty is an advantage. Far from it. Living with constant financial pressure creates enormous stress and makes long-term planning much harder. But when it comes to solving urgent, short-term problems, people facing scarcity often develop skills that wealthier people rarely need. And once you understand why, you'll never look at money or decision-making the same way again. Most people believe that rich people make better financial decisions simply because they're rich. It seems logical. More money should mean better choices, better planning, better discipline, better outcomes. But that's confusing results with process. Someone can have millions of dollars and still waste food, overpay for subscriptions, ignore price tags, or buy things they'll never use. Meanwhile, someone living paycheck to paycheck might know exactly how to stretch $20 into an entire week's worth of meals. That isn't luck, it's adaptation. Researchers call this the psychology of scarcity. When resources become limited, your brain starts allocating attention differently. Instead of thinking about dozens of possibilities, it zooms in on the problem that matters most right now. Sometimes that intense focus produces remarkably efficient short-term decisions. But there's a catch. The same mechanism that helps you survive today can make tomorrow much harder. We'll come back to that later. Scarcity forces ruthless prioritization. Think about your phone battery. When it's at 100%, you leave apps running, you watch videos, scroll endlessly, maybe even forget to charge it. But when it's down to 2%, everything changes. You close every unnecessary app, lower the brightness, turn off Bluetooth. Every decision suddenly matters. Money works the same way. When someone has very little money available, every purchase competes against every other purchase. Buying lunch might mean skipping transportation. Paying rent might mean delaying a medical appointment. Replacing a broken phone could mean postponing groceries. These aren't hypothetical trade-offs. They're daily realities for millions of people. As a result, many people experiencing financial scarcity become incredibly skilled at evaluating immediate costs and benefits, not because they enjoy it, because they have to. Behavioral economists Senthil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir describe scarcity as creating a kind of mental spotlight. Your brain focuses intensely on what feels most urgent right now. That spotlight can improve efficiency on immediate problems, but anything outside the spotlight starts fading away. That's why someone under financial pressure might negotiate every grocery price, yet forget to renew their driver's license. The issue isn't intelligence, it's bandwidth. And that distinction changes everything. But here's where most people get it completely wrong. If scarcity can sharpen focus, why do studies also show that poverty often leads to worse long-term financial outcomes? It seems contradictory until you understand what scarcity quietly steals from the brain. Every dollar carries more information. Imagine dropping a $1 coin. Would you stop to pick it up? Some people wouldn't even notice. Now imagine that same dollar is your last dollar until Friday. Completely different story. Its value hasn't changed, but its importance has. Economists call this marginal utility. Simply put, the less money you have, the more valuable each additional dollar becomes. That's why people with limited incomes often know the prices of everyday products almost perfectly. They know which supermarket is cheaper, which bus route saves money, which restaurant gives larger portions, which day stores offer discounts. They build mental databases most wealthy consumers never need. Ironically, abundance often removes the incentive to optimize these small decisions. When the financial consequences are tiny compared to your income, convenience usually wins. That's not irrational. It's efficient for someone with abundant resources. But it also means rich people sometimes lose the habit of carefully evaluating everyday trade-offs. And that's exactly where the next idea becomes even more surprising, because sometimes having more options actually makes decision-making worse. Too many choices can make you worse at choosing. Here's a strange question. If having more money gives you more options, why do those extra options sometimes make decisions harder? Imagine you're standing in front of two vending machines. The first has 6 drinks, the second has 100. Which one would you choose from faster? Most people think more options mean more freedom, but psychologists have found the opposite can happen. When we're overwhelmed with choices, we spend more time comparing, second-guessing, and worrying about whether we pick the best option. This is known as choice overload. Now think about someone on a tight budget. They don't have the luxury of considering 20 different possibilities. Their budget eliminates most of the options before the decision even begins. It sounds limiting, but it also speeds up decision-making. The question isn't which of these 20 things do I want, it's which of these can I actually afford. That constraint creates clarity. Not happiness, not freedom, just clarity. Ironically, the wealthier you become, the easier it is to delay decisions because you have so many possibilities to consider. The poor often can't afford indecision. But don't mistake speed for superiority. Because while scarcity helps people decide faster, it also quietly drains something far more valuable: mental energy. And that's where everything begins to change. Scarcity creates incredible pattern recognition. Have you ever met someone who instantly knows where the cheapest food is, or exactly when a store puts items on clearance, or which bus route saves both time and money? To someone with plenty of money, that might seem like random knowledge, but it's actually a survival skill. When your budget is limited every single day, your brain starts recognizing patterns most people never even notice. You remember prices without trying. You notice when products shrink in size. You spot fake discounts. You know which stores quietly raise prices before holidays. It's almost like developing a sixth sense, not because you're naturally gifted, because repetition trains your brain. Professional chess players don't memorize millions of moves. They recognize patterns. Professional firefighters don't calculate every possibility. They recognize patterns. And people living with financial scarcity often become experts at recognizing financial patterns in their environment. It's an adaptation. The brain becomes incredibly efficient at solving the same urgent problems over and over again. But here's the downside. Those skills are highly specialized. They're excellent for surviving today's challenges, not necessarily escaping tomorrow's. So, if scarcity sharpens focus and builds powerful pattern recognition, why doesn't everyone experiencing poverty eventually become wealthy? Because there's one hidden cost almost nobody talks about. Scarcity quietly taxes your mental bandwidth. Imagine trying to solve a difficult math problem. Now imagine someone interrupts you every 30 seconds, again and again and again. Eventually, you're not worse at math, you're just mentally exhausted. Financial stress works in a similar way. When you're constantly thinking about rent, bills, food, transportation, unexpected emergencies, your brain has fewer resources available for everything else. Researchers describe this as reduced mental bandwidth. It's not that intelligence disappears, it's that attention gets consumed. That's why someone can be brilliant at finding the cheapest meal, yet struggle to plan for retirement 30 years away. Not because they don't care, because today's emergency is louder than tomorrow's opportunity. Behavioral economists call this present bias. When resources are scarce, immediate rewards become far more valuable than future rewards. And honestly, that can be a completely rational response. If you don't know whether next month is secure, planning for 30 years from now feels almost impossible. That's why wealth isn't just about having money. It's about buying the ability to think beyond today. But here's the biggest misconception of all. People often assume that once someone becomes rich, they automatically become smarter with money. That's not what the evidence shows. What wealth really buys isn't intelligence, it's mental freedom. Money doesn't magically increase your IQ. It doesn't instantly make better decisions for you. What it does buy is breathing room. Think about someone with a 6-month emergency fund.
If their car breaks down, it's frustrating, but it's manageable. Now imagine someone living paycheck to paycheck facing the exact same repair bill. Same problem, completely different experience. One person solves the problem. The other has to decide, should I fix the car, pay rent, buy groceries, or miss work? That's not just a financial difference, it's a decision-making difference. Wealth removes thousands of tiny emergencies before they ever happen, and when your brain isn't constantly putting out fires, it finally has room to think strategically, to learn new skills, start a business, negotiate better opportunities, invest consistently, plan years ahead instead of days ahead. In other words, the greatest luxury money provides isn't luxury itself, it's mental bandwidth. Do broke people make smarter short-term decisions than rich people? Sometimes yes. Not because they're naturally smarter, not because poverty's an advantage, but because scarcity forces the brain to prioritize immediate survival with incredible precision. It creates focus, pattern recognition, efficiency, and ruthless prioritization.
But those same strengths come with an enormous hidden cost: constant stress, reduced mental bandwidth, and a much harder time planning for the future. The real lesson isn't that being poor is secretly beneficial. It's that our financial circumstances shape the way we think. When we judge someone's financial decisions without understanding the pressures they're under, we're often judging the symptoms, not the system. And perhaps that's the biggest takeaway of all. If you want to make better decisions tomorrow, don't just chase more money. Build more margin. Reduce the necessary stress. Create breathing room. Because the best decisions rarely come from panic, they come from clarity. If this video changed the way you think about money, share it with someone who believes poverty is simply the result of bad decisions. And if you enjoy evidence-based videos that challenge conventional wisdom about wealth, psychology, and success, subscribe. Because sometimes the biggest financial myths are the ones we've believed our entire lives.